Hi everyone. Today I want to show you why scaling real life scale is important when using true terrain or when you create landscapes, and also two different ways to texture your terrain with or without UV map. So I've set up a very simple Nishita sky environment here, and let's add an landscape. So first of all, of course, you could add an end landscape, and if you have nodescapes, because that was a question as well in the Discord server in the community, which I recommend to join because it's very friendly and very supportive, and the developers are great in helping any questions you might have. So let's do a nodescapes terrain. Here are presets I have shared in the community or have done for myself, but let's go with one of the standards. So let's do Crescent Island. Just click on execute preset, and here we have the terrain. Now you could go in here, go into Nodescape, and you can of course, fiddle with it. You can change it to your liking, like so. You can do whatever you want. So let's keep it at this. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, and what we're going to do is make a copy, Shift D, move it over here, and then rotate the sun so we have almost similar lighting to both, like something like this. Okay. Now, if we take a look at the item, we see the scale is 1, as it should be on both. But the problem is, right now, this mesh is 1.5 meters across and half a meter high. So if we apply a texture, and let's go with something that comes with true terrain as well. Let's go with the desert, one of my favorites here, and the same one here. Yeah, absolutely the same thing, and in a way this looks already quite good. Remember, we're going with 0K, so you can see the difference in here, right? So, but for this demonstration, oh, you know what, let's go with 2K on both. Okay, so the first problem with that is, of course, you could put your camera where you want it and then move from here, no problem. However, the first problem starts when you are going to apply assets to it. And let's go in here, and although I love the red cedar tree, which is like 20 to 30 meters, let's go with the ash trees, which I like as well. So it's add trees, and we don't see anything. Strange. Okay, obviously too little. Let's reduce the distance, nothing. Now let's increase the density. Oh, and here is our tree. It's just a proxy, but you can see this still is real life scaled. Yes, you could play with the scale, but also the distribution is messed up if you mixing real life scale assets with scaled down terrain. So what we're going to do is get rid of this, and go back to the item and say make this like 400 meters high. That gives me a scale of over 600, which is a little bit much, so let's go with 400 everywhere. Okay, 400, 400, 400, and the same thing we're doing here. Zoom out and move this over here. So we've got the same thing again. Okay, right. What you can see is that the scaling of the texture isn't affected by our scaling up the mesh, which is cool, right? And you could work with that. However, the problem is, now let's do our asset again, add trees. Still not to be seen. Why? Okay, let's do the same thing, increase the density. Okay, they start to show up. Let's do 5. And there we are. Okay, we've got the trees are now properly sized, but it's kind of funny and strange, honestly, why I need such a high density count. So if I'm going to have, let's not go crazy, let's go with 10. Yeah, we've got our trees in here. Okay, I'll show you how that differs if we are actually applying the scale. So Control A, apply the scale, and let's do the same thing here. And now let's do, so what you can see immediately is that the texture scaling is completely off, and we need to address this later. But right now, let's take another look what happens if we put the trees in here. Ah, completely different approach. Now we have all with the same settings as before. We've got the whole mesh covered, and now we can much better, we can much better control our density. So it's obviously too much. Let's go with 0.5. And then we can put modifiers to it so it fits our needs. So that's one of the reasons why I'm using real life scale and apply the scale as well. Let's get rid of this and go to the second part, which is the texturing. So let's go to the shader again, and we have our texture applied. And as you can see, this is super horrible. Not the fault of True Terrain, but the way Blender works with scales. So the first thing I want to show you is this one. And let's go back to the solid view to edit. And we've got 180,000 edges, 90k faces. So let's select all of these and apply a Smart UV project in here. Might take a while. No, it's already done. Okay. So the first thing, with a UV map applied, you can go into your settings, and I only need the shader, the mapping, and the advanced mapping. Both are set to a standard mapping scale or texture scale of 10. Now the first thing we're going to do, because we've got the UV map in here and here we don't. So we go in here and use the UV map, and this is just 0 or 1. And we already have a much better view on this, so we can play. Let's decrease this to 5. It already looks quite nice. We can make this even. We can go make it bigger, but you can already see a lot of repetition. We could go in and blend the seams, which doesn't do much in this case. Sorry. So we could go to anti-tile, which doesn't make the repeat so obvious, but I don't like anti-tile, just a personal preference. So what I'd rather do is work with the scale, so let's go with 4. Something like this, and play with the scale in here, like make this a 1 as well. And now I'm not seeing a lot of repetition, so that's fine to me. And what we're going to do now, because as you can see it's pretty flat, we've got some small displacement in here, but it's not enough. So we have this over here, displacement strength over here, so let's go with a 1. What happens there? 1 does a little bit. Let's go to 5. It's still flat here. So why is that? That's because, that's the same thing as the scale before, we have, remember, we have applied 400 times multiplier to the mesh, and the scale here on the material displacement is still 0.1. So what I'm usually, we could go with 40 because we did it 40 times. If I'm doing that, this already looks much better. And if I would go in here with a 1, I think it would be, yes, far too much. So let's go with 0.3. That's pretty good. However, it's still too blobby. I like this one here, but this one is not to my liking. So 0.2, or let's not go with 40, but let's go with 20. Yep. This this looks good to me. And we could go from there. Now, could we achieve the same thing without a UV map? Yes, we can. The same thing applies here. We already know that a scale of the material displacement of 20 works, so let's use it here as well. And instead of using a UV map, we are going to go as low as possible with the texture scaling. So let's go with 0.5, see what happens here. Okay, we already see the texture, 0.1. Yep, it's already good. And now the same thing here, 0.3. And we got almost the same results as in here. What have we had? We've got 0.2, we got 0.3 in here. Obviously we can go a little bit higher there. Now getting blobby and bulky. And I don't like these displacement artifacts, so 0.3 should be okay. Yes, we still got some of them, and we could get rid of them easily by applying, because we didn't do this on either model, we could apply a subdivision modifier. Let's try this. However, we've got 180, Now we've got 450,000. However, you can see this looks much better now, and we don't have any, well, not very much, very many displacement artifacts. So what we're going to do, let's see how so what we're going to do is either decrease the displacement strength to 0.2, or we could go to a scale of 10 and increase this back to 0.4, for example. But this is something you can play with. So, or at least this is what I'm doing a lot, is to find the right perspective, of course, and then either work without or with UV map. And the bigger and the higher poly count your mesh has, applying a UV map might be a little bit time consuming, tricky, and sometimes, at least at my system, Blender even crashes. So again, let's just do a quick check if any of our fiddling has changed the way the trees. Now let's go, because we've got the right height now with the red cedar tree. Add it here. Is it the same here without UV map? Let's have a look. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but let's take a look at the settings. 0.25, so these are the standard settings. Same applies here. Pretty much the same. And then of course we can play with the modifiers. This might be something you might be interested in as well. So the first thing what I'm going to do usually is find, I can give this over here, find a nice view for my scene. Camera angle is the proper term, like so. This looks fine. Let's get this over here, sort of a backdrop, smaller. And this is what happens if you forget to click camera to view again. So let's move this over here. First thing I'm always going to do is go to my modifier stack and use a camera mask. I only have one camera in here, so you can see this is not going to render here. Everything else is. The next thing I'm going to do is a slope mask. Click the picker, and I only want it on flat surfaces. Slope factor of 0 is of course only on the flattest surfaces, so let's increase this manually a bit. So something like this. Go back to scatter, it's still a little bit much, so let's go with 1.5. Take a look. And then what I'm going to do is usually going back here, and then I'm going to my asset settings and click on the load function and say I want this low as a proxy in here and medium in the render as it is. And now we're making a small section of this scene and hitting F12, rendering it out, and we should see, this might take a while, and we should see proper trees in our rendering. Let's give it a look. So in the end, I hope this helps you with scaling, applying real life scale to your terrain, and giving you two options on how to actually texture your landscapes with or without UV map. Thanks for watching.